Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Every single choice you make, every choice, from hitting that snooze button this morning to deciding whether to invest in your education, it's all basically a negotiation with a future version of yourself. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the hidden economics of time itself.
So this really is the fundamental question, isn't it? It's this constant tug of war between the you of right now and the you of tomorrow. Do you grab that satisfaction today, or do you hold off, delay that gratification for a potentially much bigger payoff down the road? And what's wild is that this choice, this seemingly personal little dilemma, well, it's not just personal. It's actually the engine that drives all human progress.
All right, to really get a handle on this, let's do a little thought experiment. Let's meet a guy named Rich. Picture this. He's stranded on a desert island. Now, Rich is resourceful. He can catch 4 rats a day just using his bare hands, enough to get by. But then an idea sparks. What if he could build some kind of trap, something that could catch even more rats for him? And that decision right there, the choice to build instead of just catch, that's where our entire journey into the economics of time really kicks off.
And this right here is our first huge takeaway. You've heard it a million times. There's no such thing as a free lunch, and that is especially true when it comes to time. See, for Rich to build those traps, he has to give something up. He has to make a sacrifice. Now, the cost isn't about money. There's no money on this island. The real cost is the value of the next best thing he could have been doing with that time. Maybe that's catching the rats he needs for dinner tonight. Or hey, maybe it's just kicking back and enjoying the sunset. That's a cost too.
Okay, so how does Rich figure out when to call it a day? When does he stop building traps? Well, it's all a trade-off, right? He's constantly weighing his options. He'll only decide to build one more trap if he thinks the payoff from that trap is worth more to him than, say, spending that next hour just chilling in a hammock. The second that hour of leisure starts looking better than the reward from one extra trap, poof, tools down, his workday is over. He's found his own perfect balance.
So Rich is busy making these traps and maybe some barrels to collect rainwater. But, hold on a second. He can't eat a trap, right? And he can't drink a barrel. So what gives them value? Where does it actually come from?
Well, economists have a way of looking at this. They basically split stuff into 2 big categories. First, you've got consumer goods. Think food, water, a comfy hammock. This is the stuff that gives you direct, immediate satisfaction. It solves a problem for you right now. But then you have producer goods. These are things like Rich's traps. Their entire worth comes from the fact that they help create the consumer goods we actually want. And there we have it. That's the fancy term for it. These producer goods are what we call capital goods. Sometimes you'll hear them called higher order goods, which is a great name because it reminds you they're a few steps removed from the final product. They're the tools, the factories, the infrastructure. Basically, they're the building blocks for all future satisfaction.
I love this quote from Ludwig Lockman because it just nails the point. He says, beer barrels and blast furnaces are capital not by virtue of their physical properties, but by virtue of their economic functions. What does that mean? It means a thing isn't a capital good because of what it's made of. It's a capital good because of a human plan, because of how we intend to use it. Think about it. A barrel used to age beer in a brewery, that's a capital good. But take that exact same barrel, stick it in an art gallery as a sculpture, now it's a consumer good. It's all about our purpose for it.
So let's circle back to Rich. When he made that choice, when he gave up an hour of kicking back to build a trap, what was he actually doing? He was saving. And this is so important. Saving isn't just about putting money in a bank account. In its most fundamental sense, saving is the act of choosing a future satisfaction over a present one. It's saying no to relaxing now so you can have more food tomorrow.
Okay, but of course it doesn't stop there. It always gets more complex, right? Rich has a new brainstorm. He realizes, hey, I could build these traps and barrels way faster if I had a hammer and a saw. So now check this out. He's not just making tools to get food, he's making tools to make other tools.
And this creates what economists call a structure of production, kind of like a ladder. At the very bottom, you have the cooked rat. That's the consumer good, the first-order good. That's what Rich ultimately wants. One step up the ladder, you have the traps. They're second-order goods. They help make the first-order good. And one step above that, the hammer and saw. They're third-order goods, used to make the second-order goods. And here's the cool part. The value doesn't flow down, it flows up. The value of the hammer only exists because the traps are valuable, and the traps are only valuable because the cooked rat is valuable.
So what happens if Rich makes a terrible discovery?
What if he finds out the island's rats are all carrying a disease and are totally inedible? What happens to the value of everything? Well, it collapses like a house of cards. The cooked rats are now worthless. In fact, they're worse than worthless, they're dangerous. Which means the traps designed to catch them, suddenly they're just useless piles of wood. And the hammer and saw he so painstakingly built just to make traps? They lose their value too. It's a perfect illustration. The value of all those higher-order goods is completely, 100% dependent on the value of that final consumer good.
So we've got this vertical structure, this ladder of production. But there's also a horizontal structure. Think about a hammer. What good is a hammer without nails? Or a lamp without a light bulb? They're what we call complementary goods. One is basically useless without the other. Their value is completely tied together. And you see this everywhere in our world today, right? Cars and gasoline, your smartphone and the apps on it.
And all of this brings us right back to that big central puzzle we started with. We've pretty clearly established that saving, building these capital goods, is the surefire path to a better, more prosperous future. So, if it's so great, why don't we do it all the time? Why stop?
No, I mean, really think about that for a second. If giving things up today always leads to having more tomorrow, why would anyone ever stop saving? Why does a billionaire buy a fancy car today instead of investing that money to have 2 fancy cars next year? If you take it to its logical conclusion, you'd end up in a world where everyone is constantly saving for a future that they never ever get to enjoy.
The answer to this puzzle is something deeply, deeply human. It's a concept called time preference. And it's actually super simple. It's just the idea that if all other things are equal, we humans prefer to have something good now rather than that exact same good thing later. It's why a slice of pizza today often sounds better than 2 slices next week. And this isn't some universal constant. It's totally subjective. It's different for everyone, and it even changes for you throughout your own life. And as the great economist Ludwig von Mises pointed out, this isn't some kind of bug in the human system, it's a feature. It's actually a requirement for us to act at all. Think about it. If you didn't prefer getting things sooner, you'd be perfectly happy to wait an infinite amount of time for anything. And if you're willing to wait forever, why would you ever lift a finger to achieve something? You wouldn't. Action itself implies a preference for a sooner result over a later one. Okay, let's make this really concrete. Let's say it takes Rich a full week to build a good trap. During that week, he has to sacrifice catching 7 rats that he would have normally eaten. But he figures that once the trap is built, it'll help him catch an extra 14 rats next week. So that's a 100% return on his investment of time and hunger. So the big question is, should he do it? So what's the right call? Is there an objectively correct answer here? Nope, not at all. The right choice depends completely on Rich's personal, subjective time preference. If he goes ahead and builds the trap, his actions are revealing that to him, getting 2 rats next week is more valuable than getting 1 rat this week. But if he chooses not to build it, well, then his actions are revealing the exact opposite preference. It's that simple.
All right, I know we've spent a lot of time with our buddy Rich on his little island. You might be wondering, okay, rats, traps, I get it, but why does this matter to me? Well, it matters because this simple story isn't just about one guy. These exact same principles are what's happening on a massive scale across the entire global economy every single second of every single day.
And this right here is the big takeaway. I mean, if you remember one thing, make it this. Every single bit of progress our civilization has ever made, every road, every hospital, every life-saving medicine, every piece of technology, it all exists for one fundamental reason. Someone, somewhere, at some point in time, made a choice. They chose to save. They chose to sacrifice something they could have enjoyed in the present in order to build something that would create a better, more prosperous future.
And that brings this whole thing right back to you. Rich's story is your story. It's my story. It's our story. It's played out in the thousands of tiny decisions we all make every single day. Every dollar you spend, every hour you work, is a negotiation between who you are today and who you want to be tomorrow. So I'll leave you with this to think about. With the choices you're making, which self are you building a future for?